Let me tell you something real. Most people think their life will change overnight. They pray for a miracle, wish for a breakthrough, hope for a big moment that flips everything around. But life doesn't change because of a big moment. Life changes because of a small decision you make every single day. Small daily improvements create big results because real change is built quietly, slowly, and consistently over time. Most people underestimate the power of small actions because they look insignificant in the moment. You work out for 10 minutes and nothing changes. You read a few pages and your life looks the same. You save a little money and your bank account barely moves. But that's the trick. Progress doesn't reveal itself immediately. Small improvements work like seeds planted in the ground. You don't see growth on the first day or even the first week, but beneath the surface, something powerful is happening. Roots are forming, patterns are developing, discipline is being built, and eventually that quiet effort rises above the ground and becomes something real and undeniable. Small improvements matter because they are achievable. You don't need to overhaul your life, create a huge plan, or break your back to start improving. You just need to take a small step, something so easy you can't talk yourself out of it. When the step is small, the excuses have nowhere to hide. It becomes hard to say I don't have time when the task only takes a few minutes. It becomes hard to say it's too difficult when you're only demanding a small push from yourself. This is how habits begin. This is how momentum starts. You reduce the friction so low that your brain has no reason to resist. And once you start, something powerful happens. You keep going. Taking one small step today makes it easier to take another tomorrow. You begin to trust yourself, and that trust is everything. Each small improvement sends a message to your mind: I show up, I keep my promises, I'm moving forward. That message builds confidence, and confidence builds energy. The more energy you have, the more your small steps grow into bigger ones. Soon, the tiny actions you once thought were meaningless become part of your identity. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone hoping to improve, but as someone who is improving. This is where the compounding effect comes in. Progress that starts small doesn't stay small, it multiplies. One push-up today becomes a workout habit. Reading one page becomes finishing books. Saving a little becomes financial stability. Practicing a few minutes becomes mastering a skill. The growth builds on itself layer by layer, day by day, until suddenly you look back and realize the huge distance you've traveled. And the surprising part is that none of it felt dramatic while it was happening. Compounding is quiet, subtle, and slow at first. Then it becomes unstoppable. People struggle because they want instant results. They spend years doing nothing, then expect a week of effort to fix everything. When the results don't appear quickly, they give up. But the truth is this: the biggest results always come from the smallest beginnings. A mountain is climbed one step at a time. A book is built one word at a time. A successful life is created one choice at a time. Nothing massive starts massive. It grows into massive. Small daily improvements also protect you from burnout. When your goals are too big, you overwhelm yourself. You feel pressure. You feel anxiety. But when you break everything into tiny steps, you stay relaxed, focused, and consistent. You don't fear the process, you embrace it. And because the steps are manageable, you keep going long enough for the results to appear. The truth is simple. Big results are nothing more than small improvements stacked on top of each other. Every small decision you make is a brick. Every day you show up, you're building your future. Over time, those bricks become a foundation, strong, unshakable, and built entirely by you. Small daily improvements may not feel powerful today, but they are shaping the life you will live tomorrow. Keep stacking the small wins. The big results will come. Consistency beats talent because talent alone has never been enough to sustain success. Talent can open a door, but only consistency keeps it open. You can be gifted, smart, creative, or naturally skilled, but if you don't show up every single day, someone with less talent but more discipline will pass you. It happens in every field, in sports, business, school, relationships, and personal growth. The world doesn't reward potential, it rewards persistence. The truth is, talent is a blessing, but consistency is a choice. And choices shape outcomes far more reliably than gifts. Consistency builds habits, and habits shape your future. When you do something day after day, even in small amounts, your brain begins to operate differently. You train yourself to follow through instead of quitting, to build instead of procrastinating, to show up instead of making excuses. And that identity, being someone who shows up, is more valuable than any natural ability. Talent can be slept on, wasted, ignored, or taken for granted, but consistency forces growth. Even if you're not the best, showing up again and again makes you better. It sharpens your skills, strengthens your mindset, and builds a level of determination that talent alone can't provide. People admire talent, but they underestimate effort. The hardest worker in the room often becomes the most skilled, not because they started with more, but because they refuse to stop. When you keep showing up, you accumulate experience. While others wait for motivation, inspiration, or perfect timing, you're gaining real practice. Every repetition, every attempt, every small step puts you ahead. That's why consistency wins. It creates momentum, and momentum creates mastery. Consistency also eliminates the need for motivation. You don't wake up every day excited, inspired, or full of energy. Nobody does. Waiting for motivation is the fastest way to stay stuck because motivation fades. But discipline, showing up even when you don't feel like it, is what builds progress. When you're consistent, you don't rely on emotions, you rely on routine. You do the work because that's who you've decided to become. And when your actions come from identity instead of mood, you become unstoppable. Talent might get people to notice you, but consistency gets them to respect you. The reliable one is always more valuable than the talented one who disappears. Employers know it, teammates know it, and even you know it. When you can depend on yourself to follow through, life becomes easier. You stop doubting, you stop delaying, you stop dreaming without acting. You start moving slowly at first, then confidently, then powerfully. Consistency builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. Every time you show up, you prove something to yourself. I can do this. That belief grows, confidence grows, and when confidence grows, performance grows. Talent may give you a head start, but consistency decides the finish line. Even the most talented people in the world face failure. They didn't succeed because they were the most gifted. They succeeded because they kept showing up when others stopped. They practiced longer. They stayed focused when everyone else quit. They grew through repetition, not luck. Consistency also protects you from comparison. When you focus on showing up every day, you stop worrying about who's better, who's faster, who's smarter, or who's ahead. You realize your only competition is who you were yesterday. And when you compete with yourself, you always win because every day you become a little better. In the end, consistency turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. It turns small efforts into major victories. It turns dreams into plans and plans into reality. Talent may shine for a moment, but consistency builds a lifetime. When you commit to showing up every day, no matter how you feel, no matter what the circumstances, you unlock a power far greater than talent, the power of unstoppable momentum. Consistency doesn't require perfection. It only requires persistence. And anyone can choose persistence. Anyone can decide to keep going. That's why consistency beats talent, not sometimes, but every single time. Big change comes from small habits because your life is shaped not by the big decisions you make once in a while, but by the tiny choices you make every single day. Most people imagine a dramatic transformation, a sudden breakthrough, a huge moment, or one powerful event that changes everything. But real change doesn't happen that way. Change grows quietly, subtly, and consistently through the small actions you repeat until they become part of who you are. A habit that takes just a few minutes may not look important in the beginning, but it has the power to reshape the direction of your entire life. Small habits work because they bypass resistance. When you start with something huge, you become overwhelmed quickly. You feel pressure, you feel fear, and because the change feels too big, you delay it or quit. But when you start with something small, something simple, something doable, you actually begin. You remove the mental barrier. You trick your brain into action. A tiny habit doesn't scare you, burden you, or make you feel like you're climbing a mountain. It feels manageable, and that's why you stick with it. Once a small habit is repeated enough times, it becomes automatic. It no longer requires motivation or willpower. It becomes part of your routine, part of your identity. And that identity shift is where the real transformation begins. Every time you follow through on a tiny habit, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. If you read 2 pages a day, you're casting a vote for being a reader. If you do 5 minutes of exercise, you're casting a vote for being someone who takes care of their health. If you save a small amount of money, you're casting a vote for being financially responsible. Over time, these tiny votes accumulate until they redefine how you see yourself. Small habits are powerful because they compound. One small improvement doesn't look like much, but it builds on itself. 10 minutes of practice each day turns into hours over the course of a month and into mastery over the course of a year. A few pages of reading a day become dozens of books. A short walk becomes increased energy, better health, and more confidence. Compounding doesn't happen in giant leaps. It happens in tiny steps repeated consistently. Another reason small habits create big change is that they build discipline without overwhelming you. Every time you follow through on a small habit, you strengthen your discipline muscle. You prove to yourself that you can keep your promises. And once you build that inner confidence, you naturally begin to take on bigger challenges. It becomes easier to expand a habit from 5 minutes to 10, from 10 to 20, from small to meaningful. But none of that expansion happens without first mastering the small steps. Small habits also remove the fear of failure. When you aim too high too quickly, the fear of not being perfect kills your progress. But when the habit is small, mistakes don't feel catastrophic. You can recover easily. You can restart without guilt. This keeps you consistent, and consistency is the engine of transformation. It doesn't matter if the step is small. What matters is that you keep stepping. The truth is, big change is nothing more than small habits repeated over time. There is no overnight success. There is no magic switch. What looks like a sudden breakthrough is always the result of quiet, steady, daily habits practiced when no one was watching. The person who succeeds isn't the one who does something huge once. It's the one who does something small thousands of times until it becomes powerful. Your habits shape your future. Your habits build your character. Your habits tell the story of who you're becoming long before the results show up. And because small habits are easy to start, easy to repeat, and easy to maintain, they become the foundation of every major change you will ever experience. Big change grows from small habits every time. Most people fail because they want quick results, and this desire for speed destroys the patience and discipline required for real success. We live in a world where everything happens fast, fast delivery, fast entertainment, fast communication, and people start believing success should be fast too. But success has never worked like that. Growth has never worked like that. Every meaningful achievement takes time, and those who cannot tolerate the waiting period end up quitting long before the results arrive. It's not that they are incapable. It's not that they lack talent. It's simply that they expect progress to be instant, and when it's not, they walk away. The desire for quick results blinds people to the reality that progress is often invisible in the beginning. You can work hard for weeks, even months, and see almost no reward. You can exercise and not see your body change. You can save money and not feel wealthier. You can practice a skill and still feel clumsy. This early phase is where most people lose. They assume the lack of visible progress means nothing is happening. What they don't realize is that the beginning is where the foundation is built. The discipline, the consistency, the habit, the mental toughness. These things don't show up on the surface, but they matter more than anything. The results come later, and they come all at once. But to reach that point, you have to survive the slow, quiet phase. Most people don't. Quick result thinking creates unrealistic expectations. People convince themselves that if something doesn't work fast, it isn't working at all. They jump from idea to idea, from goal to goal, always searching for something that gives immediate gratification. They start a diet, quit in a week. Start a business, quit in a month. Start a new skill, quit after a few tries. They never stay long enough to see the payoff because they are addicted to speed. The moment progress slows down, they lose interest. And the truth is, progress almost always slows down. Slow progress is still progress, but most people don't see it that way. They confuse slow with failing. Another reason people fail is because quick result thinking kills consistency. If you expect instant success, you won't show up when things get tough. You won't stay patient enough to keep building. You won't remain calm when the results don't match your expectations. Consistency requires belief. Belief that your effort will matter even when you can't see the outcome yet. But when someone is chasing fast results, they don't give themselves time to believe. They want proof now, today, this minute. And because success doesn't work that way, they quit. The lack of consistency, not the lack of ability, is what defeats them. Chasing quick results also creates emotional instability. People get excited when things start well, then discouraged when they hit a plateau. They ride an emotional roller coaster based on short-term results instead of staying steady and focused on the long game. The moment the excitement fades, so does their effort. But those who win understand that some days are slow, some weeks are unproductive, and some months feel stuck. That's part of the process. Those who want quick results never learn to embrace this truth, so they never stick around long enough to experience growth. The real danger is that quick result thinking leads to quitting right before the breakthrough. Most success works like boiling water. For a long time, nothing seems to happen. The temperature rises slowly, the water stays calm, and it looks like your effort isn't working. Then suddenly, once it reaches the boiling point, everything changes. But if you stop adding heat too early, you never get there. Life works the same way. People stop just before their moment because they couldn't stand the wait. Success requires time. It requires patience, persistence, effort, and a willingness to work even when nothing seems to be changing. Most people fail not because they are unworthy, but because they are unwilling to wait. They want quick results, but real results belong to those who endure the slow and steady climb. The moment you accept that progress takes time, you separate yourself from the majority and move closer to the results they will never see. Discipline compounds, confidence compounds. These two forces build on themselves the same way money grows with interest. Slow at first, then suddenly powerful. Most people think discipline is about forcing yourself to do difficult things, but real discipline is simply the decision to keep moving forward, even in small amounts every day. When you stay disciplined, you build a record of consistency. And every day you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you can trust yourself. That trust becomes confidence, and confidence becomes momentum. The compounding begins the moment you choose discipline over comfort. One disciplined action might feel insignificant. Waking up a little earlier, doing 5 extra minutes of work, choosing to finish a task instead of putting it off. But that one small choice sends a message to your brain: I can control my actions. That message is powerful. It shapes your identity. Each time you repeat a disciplined choice, the message gets louder. Eventually, it becomes part of who you are. Discipline compounds because it builds structure. When you do something consistently, it becomes habit, and habits run on autopilot. This means discipline eventually becomes easier, not harder. People who seem naturally disciplined didn't start that way. They simply repeated small actions long enough for them to become ingrained. Once you build a disciplined habit, it frees mental energy. You no longer have to fight with yourself to do the right thing. You simply do it because it has become natural. This compounding effect is slow at first. You may feel like nothing is changing. You may feel like your disciplined actions are too small to matter, but discipline does not show results immediately. It builds quietly beneath the surface. The change comes later, once enough repetitions stack up. And when it arrives all at once. Confidence compounds the same way. Confidence is not built by compliments, achievements, or external approval. Real confidence grows from evidence that you can rely on yourself. Every time you say you will do something and actually do it, you add to that evidence. Every time you follow through on a commitment, even a small one, you strengthen your inner belief. Confidence is built through action. It grows through proof. The more disciplined you are, the more proof you gather. And with more proof comes stronger confidence. This is why confidence compounds, because every small win makes the next win easier. When you feel confident, you take bolder actions, you push yourself further, you stop fearing mistakes, you stop worrying about judgment, you stop doubting your ability, and that freedom allows you to grow faster. The combination of discipline and confidence creates a cycle of growth. Discipline builds confidence. Confidence fuels more discipline. The two feed each other. For example, when you stay disciplined with exercise, you gain confidence in your physical ability. That confidence encourages you to push harder, to stay consistent, which increases your discipline even more. The same applies to studying, saving money, learning a skill, or pursuing a goal. The more you do, the more you believe you can do. The more you believe, the more you do. Most people struggle because they expect confidence to come before discipline. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel motivated. But confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you earn. Discipline is what builds it. You take the action first, even if you don't feel confident. Then confidence grows from the action. Once you understand this, you stop waiting and you start building. The true power of compounding is time. You may not notice the change after a week or even a month, but over a year, 2 years, or 5 years, the difference becomes massive. The person who maintained small discipline every day will be unrecognizable compared to the person who kept waiting for the right moment. Discipline and confidence grow quietly, then explosively. In the end, both discipline and confidence are choices. Choices that become habits and habits that become strengths. When you commit to small daily discipline, you gain something far more valuable than temporary motivation. You gain the ability to trust yourself. And that trust becomes the foundation of unshakable confidence, the kind that carries you through challenges, setbacks, and opportunities. Discipline compounds, confidence compounds, and together they build a life you never imagined you could achieve. The rule of 1% builds a new life because real transformation isn't created by giant leaps, but by tiny improvements repeated day after day. Most people believe their life will change only when something big happens, a breakthrough, a lucky moment, a sudden opportunity. But the truth is far simpler. Your life changes the moment you commit to getting just a little better every day. 1% may seem small, almost invisible, but small improvements stack, compound, and multiply over time until they create a life that looks completely different from where you started. The power of the rule of 1% begins with its simplicity. 1% is easy. 1% doesn't require massive effort or overwhelming discipline. It's a small adjustment, a slight shift in direction, a tiny step forward. You can improve your mindset by 1% with a simple positive thought. You can improve your health by 1% with a short walk. You can improve your finances by saving a little. You can improve a skill with just a few minutes of practice. Because the improvement is small, you don't resist it. You don't talk yourself out of it. You don't feel defeated before you start. This is where the magic happens. When you make a 1% improvement, you set a standard for yourself. You begin to see that progress is possible even on your busiest days, your tired days, your uninspired days. You learn that you don't need perfection, you need movement. And when you prove to yourself that you can move even slightly, you develop trust in your own ability. That trust becomes confidence. Confidence becomes momentum, and momentum becomes transformation. The rule of 1% builds a new life because it changes your identity one small win at a time. Every day you follow through, you send a message to your mind, I'm becoming better. That message shapes how you see yourself. Instead of identifying as someone who struggles, procrastinates, or gets stuck, you start to see yourself as someone who improves, who grows, who progresses. And identity is powerful. When you believe you are a person who improves, you naturally act in ways that support that belief. The compounding effect is what turns the rule of 1% into life-changing results. If you grow by 1% today and another 1% tomorrow, you're not just adding progress, you're multiplying it. Like interest on money, your improvements build on themselves. The more you grow, the more capacity you have to grow even further. At first, the progress feels slow, almost invisible. But as weeks turn into months and months into years, that slow progress becomes unstoppable force. What begins as a small shift becomes a major transformation. The rule of 1% also protects you from discouragement. Many people quit because they chase big goals too quickly. They feel overwhelmed. They feel exhausted. They feel incapable. But when your goal is just 1% better, there's no pressure. You don't feel the weight of trying to change your entire life at once. You embrace the journey at a pace you can maintain. This is why the rule of 1% works even for people who struggle with discipline their entire lives, because it asks for progress, not perfection. Another reason this rule builds a new life is because it creates consistency. You cannot build anything meaningful without consistency. And consistency becomes much easier when the daily task is small enough to complete. Every day you repeat the cycle 1% better, even when you're tired, even when you're stressed, even when life feels heavy. You show up because the step is small enough for you to take. And by taking those steps day after day, you create a version of yourself who keeps going regardless of circumstances. Eventually, the small steps add up to a life filled with better habits, stronger discipline, clearer mindset, and greater confidence. The rule of 1% becomes not just a habit, but a lifestyle. You stop looking for shortcuts because you understand the value of steady growth. You stop fearing failure because you know progress doesn't disappear with one bad day. You stop doubting yourself because your daily actions have built undeniable proof of your own capability. A new life isn't created by a single decision. It's created by 1,000 small decisions. The rule of 1% gives you a path that is simple, sustainable, and powerful. When you commit to improving by just 1% each day, you're not just creating better days. You're building a completely new future. And that future is built quietly, patiently, and consistently, one small step at a time.